Welcome to Blood Moon Milk, the astrology show that comes out every new and full moon to help guide you on your mindfulness, meditation, and manifestation journey. I'm your host, Aurora. I've been studying astrology since way back in 2008, and I love to help share my personal practice on a consistent basis because it helps me to just show up and do it for myself. And you're welcome to join me. So today I'm going to be talking about the new moon in Virgo, which is going to be more intense. And if my makeup this morning is any indication of what that's going to be like, let that be a clue because I woke up and I was like, oh, I've got to record the podcast. I should do my makeup. I should really, channel Virgo's softer, more down to earth vibes. And if you're watching this video, my cat eye is cat eyeing and my lipstick is really, really bright. It is anything other than Virgo. And I think that this new moon is it's going to be heavy in Virgo vibes, but it's pretty intense. But before we get into all of that, I just want to do some basic housekeeping stuff. First of all, I wanted to say thank you, a big heartfelt thank you to everybody who came out to the workshop in New York for the 8/8 portal. And a big thank you to Reiki Master Tracy for facilitating that. That was really a beautiful event and just so meaningful that so many people came out to that. And if I saw you there, thank you so much for listening to this. Welcome, and I appreciate your time and your energy, both here and in person and in the future. Also, if you like me and you like the show and you want more, go ahead and subscribe to the Daily Dose. It's the daily email newsletter that I write. It comes out Monday through Friday. Friday is a weekend edition. So that covers Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So you're covered 7 days a week with astrological insights from me. And I do write it with my audience in mind. I try to make it short and sweet, but useful so that you can learn a little bit more about astrology every single day. And you get the heads up about the interesting, most relevant energies coming your way so that you have a clue before the day gets going and before you get sort of blindsided by potential surprises. You have a sense of what might be in store for you. What else? What else? What else? I did just recently start a new job. I have a day job, and have had one in the past, since I've started this show. So my availability for doing, readings, like one-on-one sessions online is a little bit diminished. But if you're interested, we can work it out. Just get in touch and I'll get you on the calendar in a time that works for both of us. And I think that's it. Okay, let's look at the astrology for the upcoming new moon in Virgo. I'm going to go ahead and open the chart and start sharing my screen. So if you're watching, you can follow along with me on YouTube or on Spotify. You should be able to see the video there too. So let me go ahead and pull up the chart for this new moon in Virgo. Okie dokie. So I've pulled up the chart and hopefully you can't hear a pickle. She is happily munching away on a bone, not too far away from me. But, regular longtime listeners of the show know that that's just how we roll. Pickle is doing much better. Her new diet and medicine have really worked wonders on her, so she's back to her old self, and I'm very grateful for that. Okay, so let's look at this chart. Now, this is very strong energy in the sign of Virgo. We are now in eclipse season, which means that the nodes of the moon are in the signs what we're having our major lunation events. So that means our full moons and our new moons are going to be in the signs where the lunar nodes are occurring. This comes every 6 months or so, and they come in pairs. But this time we get a triplicate because we'll have two new moons in the sign of Virgo. We'll have one at the very beginning of the sign, and then we'll have the next new moon, I believe, is also in Virgo, and it is on September 21st. And it's also, let me just double check. Yep, it's at 29 degrees of Virgo. So we're having two new moons in Virgo. One is very much about beginnings, this one mainly, because we have the sun and moon conjunct at 0 degrees, 23 minutes of the sign of Virgo. So this is at the very beginning of that Virgo journey. And anything that's at the first degrees of a sign is really truly like starting something fresh, starting something new. And Virgo is something that I'm like, it's admittedly an energy that I've struggled with throughout my life, but the more mature I become, the more grateful I am to the Virgos in my life and the Virgos that I've worked with and can really value their attention to detail because it's not something that I'm personally gifted with. I don't have any Virgo planetary placements in my chart. Um, it does rule the cusp of my seventh house. So that's interesting to me. But I just have a hard time connecting with that Virgo nature, that Virgo energy personally. Um, Virgo, and I blame my Sagittarius and Scorpio stellium for that because it's that energy is just kind of polar opposite to Virgo energy in a lot of ways. And those, at least the Virgo Sag stuff is square. So of course there's going to be difficulties and conflict, but also when you work with it and work through it, there's a lot of gifts to gain through not giving up and maintaining a sense of persistence when you approach these energies. And that's something that's sort of it really is important when we think about transits and the more difficult transits. Every transit brings us a gift, even if it's difficult. It like the most difficult ones force us to grow, and they tend to reward us in some way after they are done, after their time has completed. But it's not always fun. It's not always fun in games. Like I wish, every day could be a Jupiter Venus trine to your natal Venus and sun and moon, but it's just not. But we do have some lovely trines going on in this chart, and we'll get to them in a little bit. But back to Virgo energy. Virgo energy is the energy of the Virgin, of cultivating the seeds that we've planted. It's an earth sign, but it's a mutable earth sign. So it's all about change. And it can be very changeable and malleable in nature. But it also is it is earth. So it's not as sort of rooted as, say, Capricorn, and it's not as floriferous or growing as Taurus, but instead it's cultivating. It's taking what Taurus has planted and cultivating it and putting it aside for future use. So it is gifted at things like accounting and saving and storing for the future. And I think this is where its sense of practicality comes from. My grandmother, who is a Virgo, she's about to celebrate her 94th birthday next month. If hopefully, fingers crossed, she will be here to celebrate and enjoy that. But I mean, Virgo and Pisces folks both are going to be really experiencing potential upheavals in their life during this eclipse season. Because I mean, that's what eclipses do. Eclipses are wild cards. And while this particular new moon is not an eclipse, it's too far away from the nodes. So if we look at the nodes here, there's the north node is in Pisces at 18 degrees, which means the south node is in Virgo at 18 degrees, and this new moon is at 0 degrees. So that means the nodal axis is far enough away. It's 18 degrees away from where this new moon is, to prevent it from being a full-on eclipse. However, the full moon that we get coming up will be quite an intense eclipse. I just popped the chart up here. The full moon will be at 15 degrees, 22 minutes of the sign of Pisces. That is very strong eclipse energy. So between now and the full moon, um, Pisces folks and Virgo folks alike will be will be in for it. I mean, like not in a necessarily negative way, but and it depends on what your chart looks like, what you're dealing with, and what your particular situation is. Um, and so that depends on how this will show up and affect you. But the themes of Virgo is service, it's health, it's cultivation. It's also purity. It's issues to do with caring for other people. I've said this before, but I like to think of Virgo energy as the sign of the mailman. While it's not particularly glamorous, the mail has to work very specifically. That letter needs to be delivered to the right address, otherwise all hell breaks loose. And that's sort of the gift of Virgo energy, is that it is able to see the systems and the ways that things should be done, and is able to sort of architect and enforce those systems and those ways in a manner that is in service to the whole, to the greater good. Um, and so they're kind of sticklers for rules because of that inclination and that need to provide a service. Um, and that can kind of ruffle people's feathers or get under their skin, mixed metaphors, crucify me. But it can be irritating to some folks who really are more big picture thinkers or love to thrive in the abstraction. And that's where Pisces energy lies. Pisces energy is more abstract and feeling energy, where Virgo energy is more detail oriented and concrete and results driven. So think of that energy as a seesaw and a push pull to kind of set the stage and the tone for this new moon and what we're about to get into. Um, Now, admittedly, Virgo energy is not my strong suit, but I will try to decipher this all the best that I can. Um, so we have the moon and sun conjunct at 0 degrees. This is a new beginning, an urgent new beginning of some sort. But if we look across the zodiac here, we see Saturn at 0 degrees, 35 minutes in Aries. He's retrograde in Aries, and he's also conjunct Neptune. Now, this Saturn-Neptune energy is very strong. It's going to continue to be very strong until like for the next year and a half or so, while Saturn and Neptune are traveling together. And they're in a tight conjunction in the sign of Aries, and that those two planets, that conjunction is quincunx to this new moon. So a quincunx is energy. It's a minor aspect, but this is a very tight minor aspect, if that makes sense. Like it's very specific. And it's asking us to make changes. We're going to feel a need to make some adjustments somewhere in our life. They're likely to be enforced from authoritarian figures, and those authoritarian figures have a sense of ideology. Now, regardless of whether or not you agree with that ideology, is another thing entirely. But it's going to cause friction. It's going to ruffle feathers, and it's going to get under people's skin, regardless of what side of the political spectrum you're on. Either you're on the enforcing side or you're on the side that's being oppressed. And this could be, on a more macro scale, global political situations, or it could be more macrocosmically in your own life, in your own social dynamics, at work, in relationships with loved ones, or familial dynamics. It's really open to being experienced in various ways, depending on your chart and your situation. Um, but it's very specific and it's demanding shifts. It's demanding change. And Saturn does not mess around, and neither does Neptune, frankly. So these changes will be coming from the outside in. Um, and it's So the sun and the moon are the luminaries, right? And the moon represents feminine energy. The sun represents, I cannot talk today. I don't know what's going on with my chart in conjunction with Mercury at the moment, but I have been tripping over my words all day. And so please just hang in there with me. Good time to maybe point out that Virgo is ruled by the planet Mercury. And Mercury will be in Leo down here during this new moon. If you remember, we just went through a Mercury retrograde cycle. And I believe he went direct, or he began his retrograde cycle when he was at about 14 degrees of the sign of Leo. So we're just beginning to get out of the shadow phase of that Mercury retrograde cycle. That means that things are picking up steam, starting to move forward with a greater sense of clarity. And because Mercury is in Leo, it can be creative, it can be expressive, it can be joyful. But Mercury in Leo is very different than Mercury in Virgo. Mercury in Leo is like big, splashy, showy colors that really make a bold impression, where Mercury in Virgo would be much more detail oriented, perfect perspective, not a line or dot out of place if we were looking at two works of art. Um, so that's just one way of looking at it. The other very, very strong aspect to this new moon is Pluto. Pluto is retrograde at 1 degree 56 minutes of Aquarius, and he is also, you guessed it, he is quincunx to this new moon in Virgo. Um, and so this adds another layer of what is going on with this new moon. So there is a sense of dramatic power fluctuations because Pluto is power. Pluto is power hungry. He's magnetic, but he's bringing power to the people. But right now he's retrograde. So it feels like the power is sort of leaving the people at the moment. This tide will turn, and we are at the very beginning stages of Pluto's journey through the sign of Aquarius. So he'll be in Aquarius the next 20 years or so, and we're going to be in this very extreme first degree, 0 degree energy of Pluto and Aquarius for some time. It won't be until the end of next year when we start to see 2 degrees of Aquarius and feeling more and more sort of in the vibe of Aquarius, like Pluto and Aquarius energy. Right now we're feeling the instigation, the call to for the masses to rise up and speak for themselves and to make their voices heard en masse. But as that tide turns and Pluto makes his way through that sign, um, the people, the power structure will gain more momentum from the ground up. However, Pluto in Aquarius also has to do with power through technology. So there might be a sort of death and rebirth cycle of a kind of technology. Now, what this could look like or mean is people beginning to reject technology, or make their own more personal, um, like platforms. Historically, we've had these social media platforms that have been ruled by massive corporations, or corporations that became massive overnight. They didn't exist, and then they kind of became super powerful. And now that tide is turning, right? So that power structure of those social media platforms will not look the same in the next 20 years. And it might actually go away entirely. I don't know for sure, but it's entirely possible. Um, and so those two aspects that we have that, well, it's really three with Neptune and Saturn being considered really two planets. And they are two planets, but they're both conjunct each other, and then they're both quincunx this new moon, as is Pluto. And we're back. Sorry about that, folks. I my astrology program just froze and crashed, and so I had to restart it. But we're back ready to go. So the other strong aspect that I'm looking at here is Uranus and Gemini at 1 degree. This is a square to this new moon. Now, squares are more intense than the quincunxes. So we've got the Saturn and the Neptune cluster and the Pluto cluster. Those are two quincunxes happening. They're here and here, and they're both retrograde. So that's stuff from the past. Meanwhile, we have Uranus, which is the planet of revolution. It's the planet of choice and rebellion, and the sign of Gemini, which is the social sign. It's the sign of communication, short-term trips, and the unexpected. Um, and he is square to this new moon. So there could be things that come up last minute, that force you to take action, to shift, to change. Maybe plans go out the window. Plans that you had for travel might go out the window, or perhaps you suddenly find yourself traveling somewhere else that you didn't intend to. Um, because something, again, external to yourself comes up that you just have to address and take care of. Now, this won't be for everyone, but it will likely happen for folks who have very strong early degree placements of the mutable signs. So that's not just Gemini and that's not just Virgo, but that's also Pisces and Sagittarius. So and I would say it's a very tight warp, but also this could impact you too if you've got um late degree fixed sign stuff. So just like Virgo is right here at the beginnings of Virgo, Leo is a fixed sign. So if you've got stuff at like 28, 29 degrees of Leo, that could also be affecting you too. But just keep that in mind. Just keep that in mind. That's why it's important to know where your degrees are and the signs. Um, I have kind of always said, like, your phone number, your address, your social security number. You also should consider trying to memorize your planetary placements in your natal chart, just so that you know what could be affecting you and when, because that it gives you a clue. I mean, you won't know the exact circumstances that will unfold most likely, but you can have an idea, and that can help to feel a lot more sort of in control, even in situations that you really truly have no control over, but you can feel somewhat more prepared to deal with um, events as they arise. Okay, so let's keep going. I feel like I'm jumping all over the place, and I feel like that's this Pisces North Node is getting close to interacting with some of my planets in Pisces. So I'm starting to feel it's like, ooh, like kind of scattery, divinely inspired energy, but it's a little floaty. And it's 9 something in the morning. I'm just having my coffee, waking up, and I'm still feeling like really floaty. Um, but I want to make this podcast. I want to get it out there. And I want people to be able to be mindful and meditate and help, you know, rise the collective tide, if you will. Find peace inside yourself, and hopefully you can be a kinder, more grounded person as you move through your life, which helps us all incrementally. Okay, so we've talked about some pretty intense aspects that have come up. Oh, again, sorry to jump around so much, but it's just what's coming to mind. This Saturn-Neptune conjunction, combined with the North Node in Pisces, I do think we could have a pretty interesting hurricane season, especially as the moon begins to grow. I'm not so concerned right now while she is at her smallest, but as she becomes larger and begin gets closer to that Pisces full moon, I think we could see. I know Erin was a massive storm so far at the time that I'm recording this. She hasn't made landfall anywhere and hasn't made any significant impact that I'm aware of. I could be wrong, but I we were kind of dodging a bullet on it in terms of it being directly like drilling down over a certain city or a place. However, I know that we're at the beginning of hurricane season, and I do suspect that as we move along, as especially closer to the full moons and the eclipses, the full moon eclipse in Pisces, we could see another more intense storm come along that could potentially be more devastating. Because again, Neptune rules the oceans and it's in the sign of Aries, which is destructive, it's aggressive. And Saturn is there too, it's karmic. So, I don't like to make predictions because that's a great way to set myself up for failure, but just food for thought. It's something that kind of my intuition sort of pinged to me to mention. So I thought I would. Got to listen to those little intuitive ping pongs when they happen. Okay, so I've talked about some of the more difficult, more challenging aspects of this new moon. So let's talk about some of the good stuff because there's definitely good stuff happening. Mainly this beautiful, beautiful trine that we have in water signs. We have the North Node in Pisces, as I've mentioned, at 18 degrees, trining Jupiter. He's at 16 degrees, 14 minutes. That's a pretty close, tight trine. And then we also have the vertex, which is how things happen. And the vertex for this new moon is at 15 degrees of Scorpio. How interesting. So this is divine inspiration. This is intuition. This is passion. This is love. And this is things popping off because the vertex is involved. Now, the vertex is usually thought as this sort of invisible open door that, depending on placements of a chart, it's where new energy is flowing in. And so at 15 degrees Scorpio, that is a sign, a planetary degree of messages, of transformation, but also of rebirth and something new being created from old pieces. And this could be something like a redesign of a sort, and I think that's a great way to look at Scorpio energy in a way that's not so dark and depressing, actually, is a rebranding, taking something that existed and then tweaking it, considering it, really getting kind of intimate with it on a level, and then crafting it into something new that is perhaps more useful and relevant for the future. And I think that's a great way of looking at Scorpio energy. That's not necessarily doom and gloom, death, rebirth, Phoenix energy, which that's definitely all a thing, but there's many facets to that energy. Okay, so if you are a water sign at in the midpoint of the water sign, so that's 15, 16, 18, 13, 14 degrees of the water signs, this could be quite a beautiful new moon for you where things just happen. Could be very interesting. So let me know in the comments if positive things show up for you that feel sort of destined, because and big, like big destiny, because Jupiter's involved. He blows, like, kind of inflates everything. I was almost going to say blows everything out of proportion, but with with the universe, there's never really any mistakes. It's always right on time and just the way it's supposed to be. Even like in hindsight, usually. So what else is going on? Well, Venus, let's talk about Venus. Venus is still in the sign of Cancer just for a little bit longer before she pops over into Leo. So we're still feeling very wanting to like kind of nest a little bit, feeling good in our home spaces. It's sort of infusing our relationships with women with the excuse me with this positive abundant energy that is beautiful and nurturing, but it's also very protective of their sacred spaces and their sacred feminine energy. So as Venus makes her way through to the end of that sign, so she's there 27, 28, 29 degrees of Cancer, her power is certainly going to become more and more intense and more magnetic. And I'm having problems with my bangs. This has been like all day. Okay, anyway, I'm we're gonna just keep going. Okay, what else is going on? Venus. And Venus is also, she's square to Chiron right now. Chiron is at 26 degrees of Aries. And the Chiron in Aries brings up emotional wounds around identity, around feeling like your point of view matters, whether or not you feel like you're empowered enough to have a say or have a voice. And Venus in Cancer can be really triggering and challenging to that right now. It's the classic masculine, feminine headbutting energy. Um, Chiron in Aries is truly the wounded warrior, right? I mean, he was a teacher, but he was wounded in battle. Um, but Venus is exalted in the sign of Cancer, so she's nurturing and healing in other ways. But I think this could be a case of energies just being too, like on some level, they're very, very different, but they're also approaching the same problem in some ways. Venus is very nurturing, Chiron is healing. Both kind of like Venus is a little bit softer on the inside, certainly, but hard on the outside. Where Aries energy is very like direct and hard, but it's a fire sign and it is creative. So that creativity can feel a little um unpredictable at times, and that unpredictable, forceful nature of Chiron wanting to deal with wounding issues could feel threatening to people with Venus or signs at the end of Cancer where Venus is currently transiting. So I hope that helps, especially if you have stuff at the end of Cancer. You could be feeling this personally. What else do we have going on? We also, so this is interesting too. We have Pallas Athena, the planet of wisdom and strategy at 11 degrees Aquarius. She's retrograde, she's an air sign, and she's almost perfectly opposite Mercury and Leo at 12 degrees, 33 minutes. So this is another tense aspect where strategy versus creativity and just doing things are somewhat in conflict. So there could be a part of us that feels like we just have to get stuff made and get stuff out there, and uh, perfection, it could be the enemy of good. And good is what is good enough for Leo, but Pallas and Aquarius really wants to fine tune and hone that strategy a bit more. So there could be a need for flexibility. And this being a new moon in Virgo, flexibility is key. Virgo is a mutable sign. It's changeable, and not everyone is comfortable with change. Um, there's a phrase that I learned a long time ago that I think is pretty relevant when you are confronted with circumstances just outside of your control that you have to accept, and it's let go or be dragged. You can either let go of clinging on to something that's no longer working, or you can let it drag you as long as you are alive and a person, but you're going to get beat up really bad by it. It's better to let go and to cut your losses sooner than later, eh, rather than getting beat up beyond the point of no return, but beyond the point of healing. Okay, so this is quite an intense new moon. I'm really grateful it's a new moon and not a full moon. If this were a full moon, I would be hiding at home probably and just like trying to meditate. But this is a new moon. This is a new beginning. It is a new opportunity to plant seeds of intention. It's a brand new Virgo journey. So make sure you're checking your charts wherever Virgo is in your chart. This is an opportunity to plant seeds of intention in that sector, in that house. So whether it's in your 10th house of career or your first house of health and identity and your body, make sure you're checking out where this new moon is happening because there could be a lot of tension and a lot of calls from the outside world to change in some way or another. Um, and you most likely should change, but make sure that you're listening to yourself and you're speaking up for yourself and you're advocating for change that is actually beneficial to you and what feels right in your heart. Remember, Venus is in Cancer. She's about to move into Leo, which is much more heart-centered, but she's exalted in the sign of Cancer. So make sure that you're speaking up for your peace of mind and your sense of security when these external changes may be foisted upon you. Okay, let's shift gears a little bit and talk mindfulness, meditation, and manifestation. And we'll get into our meditation prompts. 1 second while I do this. All right, so let's take some deep breaths and think about Virgo and this new moon in Virgo. I'm gonna give you some mindfulness meditation prompts for you to take on board. Start with Aries. Aries rising, this new moon would be in your sixth house, most likely. So ask yourself, um, okay, let's get into our mindfulness, meditation, and manifestation prompts. I'm going to start with Aries rising. This is in your sixth house. This is the house of health and service. But ask yourself, where do you need to release control and maybe ask for some support without feeling weak? The Virgo new moon falls in the house of your health and your routines. You're being asked to plant a new seed, to refine your approach, but not necessarily perfect it. And with Saturn and Neptune both in your first house, it's a humbling call to embody your ideals. Pluto in your 11th house in Aquarius can push you to change who you serve and what future you serve. Okay. Taurus rising. This new moon is in your fifth house, the house of love, joy, and children, and like true love, passionate true love. So ask yourself, how can you create without needing to master or monetize everything? Saturn and Neptune are both in your 12th house, and they could have you doubting your worth behind the scenes. And Pluto in the 10th house adds pressure to prove yourself publicly. So maybe consider making some art that restores your nervous system or expresses your joy, or connect with a lover and just, find a place to play and feel all those sensual pleasures of life that you Taurus risings are so in tune to. So not desperately crave, but so crave. All right, Gemini rising. This new moon in Virgo will be in your fourth house, the fourth house of home. So ask yourself, what does inner safety and security and home really feel like? And how can you give it to yourself on a daily basis? Virgo tends to call for you to address your emotional sense of stability and security, while Saturn and Neptune in your 11th house might make community support feel elusive sometimes or even idealized at times right now. And Pluto in the ninth urges you to evolve your beliefs, not just about the world and philosophy, but also about your sense of home and belonging. So it could be a good time to start with grounding and uncluttering spaces. And this could be both physical and emotional. Cancer rising. This is in your third house. This new moon is in your third house, the house of communication. So ask yourself how you can refine your voice without censoring your truth. And make sure that you're not being manipulative either. This new moon wants you to clarify how you speak and how you think. Saturn and Neptune being in your 10th house bring tension between your public image and sense of personal clarity and truth, while Pluto in your 8th house could stir mental control patterns that are rooted in trauma. Make sure that you're speaking from the heart and not just your brain. Leo rising. This new moon is in your second house of earned income and values. So ask yourself, what does it really mean for you to feel wealthy, even if you're in a season of uncertainty? Virgo activates your values and your income, and Neptune and Saturn conjunct in your ninth house challenge you to trust in a future or a spiritual path. While Pluto in the seventh house may be transforming your relationships in destabilizing ways and just changing the landscape of your relationship altogether. Come back to what's solid. It's going to be your body, your gifts, and your worth. And no matter the dollar amount in your bank account, you as an individual body, as a spirit, as a creative soul on this planet, you have value, regardless of what other people say or who's willing to pay you for it. You have value. Virgo rising, this is in your first house, most likely. So ask yourself, and the first house is all about identity, our physical bodies. Ask yourself what version of yourself you are ready to grow into, even if you're not perfect. Virgo rising, you do have a perfectionist bent and tendency to want every hair in place. This is your cosmic reset. The Saturn-Neptune conjunction in your 8th house are confronting you with hidden fears around vulnerability and control. They might even be triggering issues around sexuality and anything that's taboo. While Pluto in your 6th house adds pressure to purify your habits. Now, you can do this. You're Virgo rising and you have a lot of willpower, but this is about precision with compassion, not punishment, and not self-denial. So begin softly, but make some baby steps to begin. Libra rising. This new moon will be in your 12th house. The 12th house is all about our unconscious, subconscious, and the unseen realms. So ask yourself, what spiritual pattern are you able and ready to break so that you can return to your power? Because next month we're getting into Libra territory, and that'll be great. But right now we're going through that preconditioning period before you can step into those new beginnings for your personal power, Libra risings. So Virgo clears the cobwebs out of your subconscious, and Saturn and Neptune conjunct in your seventh house blur the boundaries and partnerships, while Pluto in your fifth house is transforming your relationship to desire and creative expression. So trust your intuition, especially those little whispers you might ignore. Scorpio rising. Scorpio, this new moon will be in your 11th house, the house of community. So, and it's also the house of hopes and dreams and wish fulfillment. So, what communities or futures are you aligning with? And do they actually nourish you? This new moon asks you to curate your circles and goals, while Saturn and Neptune in your sixth house make your routines feel a little foggy and can feel draining. Pluto in the fourth house can pull you into transforming your sense of security and home as well. And also it might have something to do with inherited beliefs about security. You don't have to belong everywhere, but make sure that you're focusing and feeding the relationships for those people who truly see you. Now, Sagittarius rising, this new moon will be in your 10th house. That's the house of public standing and career. So ask yourself, what would it like to lead with purpose and integrity on your own terms? Virgo lights up your legacy and your career, while Saturn and Neptune in your fifth house could be confusing you right now on how you express your gifts. Things will become clearer as time goes by, though. While Pluto in the third house is helping you to rewrite the story of your voice. This is a recalibration. How can you rise without abandoning yourself, your joy, or silencing yourself altogether? Just food for thought. Now, Capricorn rising, this new moon is in your ninth house. This is the house of beliefs, of philosophy, of international travel, and of higher education. So consider, what beliefs about truth, success, or spirituality are you really finally ready to update? What has outlived its usefulness? This Virgo new moon will help you to reset your worldview. Saturn and Neptune in your fourth house could blur the boundaries of your inner life, especially at home and what home looks like and feels like right now. Pluto in the second house challenges your relationship to self-trust and money. So focus less on being right and more on being aligned with your current truth. Aquarius rising. Now, this new moon is likely in your eighth house, the house of transformation, rebirth, and sex, death, taxes, but also, like I said earlier today, rebranding. So ask yourself, what inner contract is ready to be broken so I can reclaim my sovereignty? This new moon stirs deep transformation, and Saturn and Neptune in your third house could be muddling your thoughts and conversations right now. That's okay. Pluto in your first house is reshaping your identity. So let this be a moment of release and planting new seeds, especially when it comes to things like debts, power struggles, or outdated roles. Set intentions to master these things because liberation comes from within. Don't let the outside world scare you from taking ownership over your sovereignty. Don't let it hide in the shadows. Okay, and last but certainly not least, Pisces rising. This is in your seventh house of relationships, of true love and partnerships that are solidified. So, true love is really the fifth house, but it leads to marriage, which is solidified partnership. So, ask yourself, what kind of relationship do you want to grow from here on out? And what needs to be cut back? This new moon shines on your partnerships. Saturn and Neptune and your second house, though, could be bringing up murkiness and issues around your values and sense of self-worth, while Pluto in the 12th house could be stirring up subconscious fears, but also asking you to rest. So if you feel called to rest, make sure that you're listening to that intuitive hit. And make sure that you're tending to your own garden before merging with others. Make sure your relationships are rooted in a sense of clarity and not fantasy. And you'll be much more likely to see them blossom. Well, I hope some of that felt good to you. I know I am ready to begin my restful period before the full moon to do a little bit of cleaning and resting myself. Um, and I wish you all the best the stars have to offer. Until next time, I'm Aurora. This has been Blood Moon Milk, and thank you for watching or listening. And make sure you share the show with your favorite people who are interested in astrology. Thanks. Bye.